Fragments, 1970, is the second novel by Ghanaian writer Kwei Armah, following his widely acclaimed debut The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born, 1968. With Fragments, Armah continues his exploration of post-independence disillusionment in Ghana, focusing this time on themes of cultural fragmentation, alienation, materialism, and the struggle for authentic African identity. The novel follows Bako, a young Ghanaian who returns from the United States after studying abroad, only to find himself alienated from both the westernized elite and the traditional society he hoped to serve. Through Bako's psychological and spiritual decline, Armah critiques the contradictions of post-colonial African society and the personal costs of its moral and cultural disintegration. The novel opens with Bako, a Ghanaian scholarship student, returning home from the United States after 5 years of study. His family and community eagerly await his arrival, expecting him to bring not just prestige but also material wealth. They have dreams of imported gifts, American gadgets, and new opportunities that Bako's Bintu status is presumed to offer. However, Bako arrives without any extravagant goods or signs of wealth. His return is quiet, introspective, and emotionally conflicted. Bako's family, particularly his ambitious mother Efua and his uncle Nakwame, are disappointed. They had hoped to leverage Bako's foreign education for social elevation. To make matters worse, Bako is jobless, idealistic, and uninterested in participating in the corrupt and materialistic post-independence system. He wants to serve his country and contribute meaningfully, but his sincerity clashes with the nepotism, bureaucratic inefficiency, and spiritual emptiness that pervade Ghanaian society. Bako becomes increasingly isolated. He finds some comfort in his friendship with Wana, a Puerto Rican psychiatrist working in Ghana, who herself struggles with feelings of displacement and the trauma of abortion. Both characters are psychologically scarred and spiritually searching, offering each other a fragile companionship. As Bako's efforts to reintegrate into society fail, he becomes overwhelmed by despair. His idealism is ridiculed, his rejection of materialism misunderstood, and his desire for moral clarity dismissed as madness. Ultimately, Bako suffers a mental breakdown and is institutionalized in a psychiatric hospital. The novel ends with Bako still imprisoned in a society that neither understands nor accommodates his values, leaving the reader to contemplate the tragedy of the sincere individual in a morally fragmented world. Title significance. The title Fragments symbolizes the fractured nature of post-independence Ghanaian society. It refers to cultural fragmentation between Western and African values, spiritual fragmentation within individuals like Bako and Wana, social fragmentation in a society divided by class, corruption, and exploitation. Armah uses the metaphor of fragmentation to highlight the disintegration of moral, cultural, and communal cohesion in the aftermath of colonialism. The novel is not just about Bako's personal breakdown, it is about the collective mental and cultural disarray of a society caught between incompatible worldviews. Character analysis. Bako is the novel's tragic hero. An idealist and artist, he returns home with the hope of using his education to serve his nation. However, he finds that Ghanaian society is obsessed with consumerism, status, and Western validation. Bako's inability to conform makes him vulnerable, and his moral clarity is interpreted as madness. He is symbolic of the alienated African intellectual, caught between Western education and traditional African values, but accepted by neither. His descent into mental illness represents the destructive impact of a society at odds with its best aspirations. Wana is a psychiatrist from Puerto Rico, also alienated by colonial legacy and personal trauma. Like Bako, she struggles with displacement and identity. Her relationship with Bako offers mutual solace, but ultimately cannot prevent his breakdown. She represents the diasporic individual, rootless, intelligent, and marginalized. Efua, Bako's mother. Efua is emblematic of the new Ghanaian middle class who equate success with Western materialism. She loves her son but is deeply disappointed by his failure to bring material wealth. Her fixation on social mobility blinds her to Bako's inner struggles. Na Kwame, uncle. A manipulative political insider, Na Kwame thrives in Ghana's corrupt bureaucracy. He epitomizes the kind of post-independence African elite who have betrayed the ideals of the nationalist struggle for personal gain. He views Bako's honesty as foolishness and tries to pressure him into a comfortable but dishonest life. Themes: 1. Alienation and identity. Bako's entire existence is marked by cultural and psychological alienation. He does not fit into the consumer-driven world of Ghana's elite, nor does he belong to the rural traditionalist society. His American education has distanced him from his roots, yet has not provided him with a meaningful place in modern Ghana. This tension drives his psychological unraveling and highlights the crisis of post-colonial identity. 2. Materialism and moral decay. One of Armah's strongest critiques is aimed at the emerging Ghanaian bourgeoisie, whose obsession with wealth, imported goods, and foreign lifestyles has replaced the spirit of service and nation-building. Bako's family sees education not as a tool for empowerment or enlightenment, but as a passport to affluence. This materialism, Armah suggests, has corrupted the post-independence dream. 3. The betrayal of the revolutionary ideal. The novel mourns the death of the African independence dream. The generation that fought for freedom has given way to opportunists who perpetuate inequality and mimic colonial systems. Bako's rejection of corruption is seen not as noble but as insane, a bitter commentary on how society punishes integrity. 4. Madness as a metaphor. Bako's institutionalization is symbolic. His madness is a metaphor for clarity in a disordered world. Rather than being mad, Bako may be the sanest person in the novel, one who sees the truth too clearly. The psychiatric hospital becomes a metaphor for societal repression of dissent, a place where inconvenient truths are silenced under the guise of medical care. 5. Art and vision. Bako is a writer and thinker, and his desire to create meaningful art is repeatedly thwarted by a society that values spectacle over substance. His artistic vision, which could serve as a vehicle for cultural healing, is marginalized. The novel suggests that art can be a tool for resistance and truth-telling, but only if society is willing to listen. Narrative style and structure. Fragments is narrated in the third person, but it frequently delves into the internal monologues and psychological states of Bako. Armah uses stream of consciousness, dream sequences, and hallucinatory imagery to mirror Bako's mental disintegration. The narrative is non-linear, moving between past and present, memory and reality, to emphasize the disorientation and fragmentation of Bako's experience. Armah's prose is richly symbolic, drawing on both African oral traditions and modernist techniques. The use of images of decay, dismemberment, and fragmentation pervades the novel, reinforcing its central metaphors. Symbols and motifs. Mirrors and reflections symbolize self-perception and distorted identity. Bako often sees himself fractured in mirrors, representing his inner disunity. Luggage and gifts. The absence of material gifts on Bako's return represents his ideological break with consumerism, but also becomes a source of conflict. The hospital. Not just a place of healing, but a metaphor for societal control, silencing, and repression of nonconformity. Film scripts and art represent Bako's attempt to give voice to his vision and communicate truth through creativity, which is consistently ignored. Critical reception and legacy. While not as commercially successful as The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born, Fragments has been praised for its psychological depth and its sophisticated analysis of post-colonial cultural dissonance. Armah's uncompromising critique of Ghana's elite and his empathetic portrayal of mental anguish have earned him a reputation as one of Africa's most intellectual and morally serious writers. The novel has become a foundational text in African literature studies, particularly in its exploration of the alienated African intellectual, a theme later revisited in novels like Ngugi wa Thiong'o's Petals of Blood and Wole Soyinka's Season of Anime. Conclusion. Kwei Armah's Fragments is a profound and unsettling meditation on the shattered hopes of post-colonial Africa. Through the tragedy of Bako, Armah lays bare the psychic toll of a society lost between incompatible worlds. One that elevates wealth over wisdom, imitation over authenticity, and conformity over conscience. The novel is a powerful reminder of the human cost of cultural disintegration and a call for a return to ethical, communal, and spiritual values. Bako's fate is tragic, but his struggle is heroic, marking him as a martyr for truth in an age of deceit. Armah's Fragments is not just a story of one man's fall, but a warning against the collective unraveling of a society that refuses to reconcile its past with a meaningful vision for the future.